Zhou Dingyuan, a rogue of the Jianggu, suddenly accepted the imperial court's amnesty, and the condition he set was that I be bestowed upon him. When everyone advised me to accept my fate, he went to Yanzhou to save a woman his true love from a past life. At this moment, I am certain, he and I ruled as emperor and empress in our past lives, and after death, we both underwent rebirth. He brought a beauty into the capital and said unabashedly, "To ensure Changjun's smooth birth, I will force myself to marry you again. Being the tool that gives birth to the most outstanding heir is also your good fortune." I pretended to be a submissive, virtuous wife in front of him for over 20 years. Then later I personally sent him to his grave and seized his throne. But he is completely unaware of the truth, and returning from rebirth, he actually proposes again. I don't mind putting on another show. Let him know that I have never been a cowardly mediocrity. I, too, once held great power and ruled the land. Just as I was about to leave for White Deer Academy to study, an imperial decree suddenly came down, bestowing a marriage upon me. The partner bestowed upon me was a Jianggu ruffian, and I became the laughingstock of the entire capital. A Tianxing stronghold has been entrenched in Ningzhou for a long time and is a major threat to the imperial court. But recently things have been exceptionally strange. Its leader, Zhou Dingyuan, suddenly accepted the court's amnesty. When I heard the news, I already sensed something was unusual. In the next instant, Father spoke with difficulty. The only condition he proposed is for His Majesty to bestow you upon him. If so, he will bring his 10,000+ bandits to submit to the imperial court and accept amnesty. Father's tone was full of helplessness, but the outcome was already determined. His Majesty has already consented, conferring upon him the rank of senior 4th-rank military general, concurrently serving as vice commander of the Valiant Cavalry Battalion. The matter of going to White Deer Academy for your studies ends here. Prepare yourself for marriage. He will be entering the capital in a few days. The moonlight in the courtyard was like white silk, yet it revealed a chill. I looked at the bright yellow imperial decree in my hand, already harboring a few guesses, but my guesses could only be confirmed when I saw him. Unexpectedly, however, during this meeting, other noble ladies in the capital were mocking me. Sister Meng has been unrivaled in the capital for years, her fame for talent growing by the day. I thought it would take some kind of celestial gentleman to be a match for you, sister. Yet, in the end, who would have thought you'd marry a mud-legged bumpkin? Fate truly plays tricks on people. It is really hard to explain. However, a talented woman and a ruffian, how is that not a match in another sense? Her voice was full of sarcasm. Words like these, I had heard countless times. They would only provoke him into further displeasure. In my past life, time and again he would press me. A talented noble lady paired with a Jianggu ruffian like me, do you feel wronged? Even if I responded that I didn't, it would only earn his disdain. He would snort with contempt, putting on an act. The reunion in this life took place amidst such voices filled with sneers and ridicule. He did not get angry. Instead, as he walked to my side, he said with a playful edge, "So many long-tongued gossips. How about we cut out their tongues?" Although I didn't respond, I scared the hell out of those sheltered women who'd never seen a bloody scene, terrified that he really was a bandit who killed without blinking. They all scattered in an instant. I know, he can do it. My expression remained unchanged, and he asked the same probing question as in my previous life. "Miss Meng, do you feel wronged by this marriage?" At this moment, I was finally certain. He had also come from rebirth. He stood tall, looking like he had everything under control. He thought he was facing the 17-year-old Meng Changli, raised deep in the boudoir, naive and ignorant, and unconsciously revealed a look of slight contempt. The imperial decree has been issued, and Changli dares not disobey. From now on, I will support my husband and raise our children, doing my duty well, so the general has no worries back home. I lowered my eyes, pretending to be meek. Clearly, He was very satisfied with this answer. As I left the tea house, however, I heard another woman around the corner say to him, "General, you really predict things like a god. How did you know so early on that the Hmong girl had such a submissive nature and would be this willing? I actually thought she would make a scene." The woman's voice was unhurried, her tone revealing a desire to please. Zhou Dingyuan scoffed lightly. "I know her nature better than anyone. She has long been in the palm of my hand. This marriage was settled so simply. After the wedding, she'll naturally do whatever I say. It looks like I won't need to waste much effort on her this time. In my past life, I played the role of a virtuous wife in front of him for 20 years. After pretending for so long, not only did he believe it, I almost believed it myself. It is a pity. He didn't know that after he died, I took charge of the court, ruling from behind the curtain with absolute power in my hands. The beauties he liked, I sent every last one of them into the underground palace to keep him company. What is the harm in playing along with him one more time? As for the woman beside him, I'd already recognized her too. It was Qilingsu. In the previous life, she was the understanding confidante by Zhou Dingyuan's side. When the empire was settled, he made her noble consort. But in this life, she came to his side even earlier. Over a month ago, I heard that Zhou Dingyuan went to Yanzhou to crash a wedding, saving a woman from the hands of a local tyrant. At that time, I guessed that Zhou Dingyuan might have also undergone rebirth. According to the trajectory of the previous life, Qilingsu was snatched by a bully. Later, the country fell into chaos, and Zhou Dingyuan saved her during the war. This happened 7 years later, but Zhou Dingyuan had now taken the risk to save her ahead of time, sparing her the suffering of wandering destitute in the first half of her life, keeping her by his side to shelter her from the wind and rain. First it was snatching a bride, after that it was accepting amnesty, piece by piece. None of this should have happened at this time. Yet, under his pushing, it was all brought forward. In his previous life, he accepted the imperial court's amnesty, which happened 2 years later. Back then, to win over the new ministers, His Majesty took the initiative to bestow a marriage, husband and wife for over 20 years in the previous life. Yet we never trusted each other or gave our true hearts. It was nothing but betrayal and suspicion. Reborn for a second life, he actually still delusionally thinks I'll obediently be his marionette and help him achieve his grand ambitions. Right now he is out in the open and I am in the shadows, so I'll play along with his act. He thinks I am a submissive, virtuous wife, willing to give everything for her husband and son. He didn't see through me, let alone Qilingsu. That is truly a fickle and poisonous datura, most skilled at advancing by retreating and reading people's minds. That is why she has remained highly favored for so many years. She is the variable I've chosen. Just like today, she knows full well that to keep her position by Zhou Dingyuan's side, it would be best if I, the legal wife, never married in. But she was still willing to put on an act of being gentle and understanding. Planning for him, every single word was considered for his sake. Never mentioning herself in the slightest. Not contending is the greatest contention. This move, used in the later deep palace battles for favor, made her undefeated. Zhou Dingyuan was a sucker for this act of hers. She won't do her scheming out in the open, but behind everyone's back, she'll try every possible way to ruin this marriage. I originally expected that something was bound to happen within 10 days, but I didn't expect it to be even earlier than I thought. Only 3 days later, my maid Juyi went to Jinyan Tower to pick up the moonlit brocade I had ordered, but she was slapped twice by someone. Juyi came back with a red slap mark on her face, eyes filled with tears, saying, "Miss, today, I met a mistress and her servant, who were so domineering. That Yuewa brocade is in short supply, and we clearly reserved it months ago, but they didn't care about first come, first served at all and just snatched it away. I merely argued a few words, and she actually hit me. Before leaving, she even shamelessly said they live at Wutong Garden in Wuyin Lane, and aren't afraid of us coming to settle the score. I ordered someone to take her down to apply medicine, But a look of amusement flashed in my eyes as my fingers tapped on the table. Wuyan Lane, Wutong Garden. The fish has taken the bait. She picked a fight on purpose, just to lure me into going to find her. Bring a few guards who are good fighters, and come with me. When Zhuyi returned after applying the medicine, she didn't expect such a grand display from me, and she was startled as well. The carriage stopped at the entrance of Wutong Garden, and the servants and guards filed in after me. Only Qi Lingsu and 2 maids serving her lived in this courtyard. One of the maids was sharp. Seeing that I came with ill intent, she sneaked away through the side door. It was obvious she went to get help, but I just let her go. As for the 2 inside the courtyard, naturally, they were left for me to deal with. Summonon. Hold them down. The guards behind me were agile, pressing the 2 of them firmly to their knees on the ground. Zhuyi, whoever slapped you, return it double. With my instruction, Zhuyi wasn't the type to mess around either. She mustered all her strength and slapped that maid across the face 4 times straight, and a scream rang out instantly. Lacks discipline, allowing your slave to commit violence. You, the master, can't escape responsibility either, and should receive the same punishment as her. As soon as I finished speaking, Zhu Yi caught my signal and landed a few backhanded slaps on Qi Lingsu's face. Obviously, Qi Lingsu was already dazed from the hit. It took a good while before she raised her head. Her eyes were full of shock, as well as the shame and indignation from being hit. She didn't expect me not to play by the book. She originally thought that after luring me here, I would discover Zhou Dingyuan keeping a mistress, and would inevitably make a scene with him, possibly even causing the marriage to fall through. And she was just a victim who was sought out, that is all. But she didn't expect that I wouldn't argue with her, but directly order my people to strike. That whole speech she had prepared, she actually didn't get to use a single word of it. She spoke out angrily. You abuse your power to bully others, relying on being an official's daughter to bully me because I have no power or influence. I bent down slightly, smiling at her. So what if I am? Do you know who I am? Finger marks were obvious on her beautiful face, yet her eyes revealed arrogance and disdain. I belong to Zhou Dingyuan. You hurt me. He won't let you get away with it. It looks like this was the speech she had prepared from the start. Too bad I didn't give her the room to perform. I feigned panic. Is that so? You really scared me there, huh? In the next instant, I raised my hand and a slap landed on her face. A look of shock and astonishment surfaced in her eyes. Stop. Zhou Dingyuan's voice came from the distance. I looked at her unhurriedly and sneered. Just you watch to what extent he can go for you. See if he is willing to give up this marriage. Zhou Dingyuan walked in quickly, personally helped Qi Lingsu up, and turned to size me up with a suspicious look. How could you have such an arrogant and domineering side? He had only ever seen my virtuous and modest side, the side where I pretended to be a good wife. So naturally, he had never seen this side of me. Pretending for over 20 years in my past life was also quite tiring. Until I outlived him, held the power of life and death, and became ruthless and heartless. He shouldn't be surprised either. In the future, he will slowly get to witness it. She allowed her servants to commit violence and bullied my maid first. I have always been someone who clearly distinguishes between gratitude and grudges, so naturally I have to seek justice. General, as my fiancé, are you here to back me up? My counter-question left Zhou Dingyuan stunned on the spot, appearing caught in a dilemma. Qi Lingsu tugged at his sleeve, sobbing softly. General, I don't wish to put you in a difficult spot, I said playfully. So the general came for her. Since you are keeping a mistress in a golden house, why ask His Majesty to bestow a marriage? Aggressive and overbearing, where is there even a hint of gentleness? Zhou Dingyuan snorted coldly, forcefully suppressing the surprise in his eyes. He saw right. I was never gentle. Being unruly is my true nature. In the next instant, Qi Lingsu actually fainted. Zhou Dingyuan hurriedly picked her up and ran toward the medical clinic outside. Looking panicked, Ju Yi looked indignant, wanting to speak up for me. I watched their retreating figures and mocked loudly. Did you see that? He won't give up this marriage for you. Qi Lingsu's hand, hanging behind his back, clenched slightly, betraying her indignation. She was faking it, but Zhou Dingyuan always falls for this act. I looked up at the sky and said leisurely, I am tired from all this fuss. Time to go back to the manor and sleep. Ju Yi didn't understand why I didn't show the slightest hint of sadness. Qi Lingsu probably thought the same. She deliberately caused trouble just to let me know of her existence, to cause a scene and ruin this marriage. Too bad. I took the opportunity to teach her a lesson, and Zhou Dingyuan didn't show the slightest intention of calling off the marriage. This marriage was granted by the imperial court upon his request for the sake of amnesty. If he wanted to back out, he'd likely find a way, but Qi Lingsu wasted her efforts. She underestimated Zhou Dingyuan's persistence and determination regarding this marriage. She is destined to be disappointed. I came here this time just to provoke her, make her clearly realize that if she doesn't take drastic measures, she won't be able to mess up this marriage. As for me, I am really looking forward to her performance. After all, in her previous life, she wasn't exactly a pushover. Father told me to wait calmly to be wed. So I put on an act every day, embroidering my wedding dress. But Zhu Yi came running to me in a panic, telling me that Qi Lingsu had become the daughter of the Marquis of Qingyang's household. A few days ago, while Qi Lingsu was offering incense to Buddha, she saved the old madam who suffered sudden heart palpitations. The old madam inadvertently noticed the lotus birthmark on her arm and confirmed that she was the youngest daughter who had been missing for many years. After just a few days without seeing her, her identity has turned into the young miss of the Marquis of Qingyang's manor. The Marquis of Qingyang's manor does indeed have a missing daughter, who is supposed to appear 3 years later to return to the capital and claim her kin. But that daughter isn't her. This old madam would have died from these heart palpitations, and the Qingyang Marquis manor should have had a funeral next. But now, things have changed drastically. On second thought, I can guess that the only person capable of seeking good fortune and avoiding calamity, changing others' fates, and pushing Qi Lingsu's destiny to intertwine with the Qingyang Marquis manor is Zhou Dingyuan. He knows what the future holds, but in doing so, he is likely just trying to gain the Qingyang Marquis manor's support sooner. Have Qi Lingsu assume the identity to rope in the forces of the Qingyang Marquis manor. The daughter of the Qingyang Marquis manor returned, and the whole household was ecstatic. The old madam doted on her to the extreme, and the Marquis of Qingyang used his years of military merit to petition for a title for her, granting her the honor of county mistress, just to make amends. She was titled County Mistress Shining, instantly becoming a noble lady with unrivaled prominence in the capital. In the previous life, the Qingyang Marquis manor valued the returned daughter greatly, treasuring her from top to bottom, a fact obvious to all. Who would have thought that this time it would actually become a casualty of Zhou Dingyuan's schemes? He sent them a counterfeit. Zhou Dingyuan had saved Qi Lingsu before, counting as her savior. So now everyone in the Qingyang Marquis manor treats him with great respect. As for Qi Lingsu's feelings toward him, that old madame sees it all clearly too. Because of this, she isn't friendly towards me. When we met at the palace banquet, that old madame scrutinized me quite heavily. I spoke to her with a smile, but her expression darkened slightly. Come to think of it, Qi Lingsu must have complained plenty to her about the grievances I caused her. I deftly stepped aside, having no intention of interacting with her. But over in the corner, Qi Lingsu was pressing Zhou Dingyuan for answers. What is so good about Meng Changli? Isn't it just that she holds the title of a noble daughter from a prestigious family? I have status now too, so why aren't you willing to give up this marriage and marry me instead? If she can get the Meng family to back you and help you skyrocket in the court, then I can also get the Qingyang Marquis manor to promote you and help you gain a firm foothold there. Qi Lingsu's voice faded, but it only earned her a rebuke from Zhou Dingyuan. I married her, not merely for her noble lineage and family backing. Then because of what else? Qi Lingsu's tone was full of confusion as she stubbornly pressed for an answer, but Zhou Dingyuan was unwilling to mention it again. But I knew the reason: because of Cheng Jun, that naturally gifted, world-renowned crown prince who died because of his suspicion. That was the child I had with him. Cheng Jun died on the battlefield. Only then did he feel remorse. It was his suspicious paranoia, listening to the instigation of treacherous men, that drove him to his death. He posthumously titled Cheng Jun as Crown Prince Zhongming, built a mausoleum for him, and buried him with the rights of an emperor. He offered ever-burning lamps, praying for his rebirth in paradise. But the person is dead, so who is this act for? All the posthumous honors cannot bring back my child. So, I could only continue playing the look of a virtuous wife, continue sympathizing with his hardships, while putting colorless and odorless poison in his ink, keeping him bedridden for years, and causing his early death. At the end of his life, I was gentle and virtuous, still the virtuous empress he praised endlessly. Little did he know, his worsening illness was entirely my doing. I took over the administration, reviewed memorials for him, and all major court affairs were decided by me, until he passed away, and I ascended the throne to rule as emperor. He never saw my hatred for him, nor did he know he died at my hands. Proposing again now, it is only because he wants to make up for his debt to Cheng Jun, to make up for the regrets of his past life. And I am still that dispensable virtuous wife in his mind, a tool to bear him the most excellent heir. But he has never understood the real me. I don't mind putting on another show with him, and I certainly don't mind killing him one more time. Zhou Dingyuan's silence made Qi Lingsu increasingly annoyed. When she walked towards me, she bumped into me hard. I patted my sleeve nonchalantly and half smiled. "County Princess Sinning, watch your step." Her suppressed anger was already surging, seemingly impossible to hold back. "It looks like that slap you took that day was for nothing. County Princess, you suffered such a great grievance, yet Zhou Dingyuan isn't willing to call off this marriage for you." I spoke calmly, yet it provoked her once again. When she raised her hand, I caught it steadily and reminded her softly, "County Princess, getting physical here would be undignified." I slowly lowered her wrist and said unhurriedly, "If you are angry, County Princess, you need to aim at the right target. The problem is clearly with that man, yet you are getting physical with me. By tomorrow, I am afraid both you and I will be the laughing stock of the capitals." She gradually calmed down. Seeing the time was right, I spoke again. "If you fancy Zhou Dingyuan, County Princess, I'd be happy to oblige and hand him over to you." There was a look of suspicion in her eyes. "As long as you, County Princess, have a way to force him to marry you, I definitely won't cling to him, and will help bring about the annulment of the engagement." She was puzzled by the nonchalance in my words. "Why are you so generous?" "I am not being generous. He is just a ruffian from the Jianggu. How could he be worthy of me if the County Princess is interested in him? I couldn't be happier." Speaking like this made me more convincing to her. Her eyes were full of suspicion, but then she sneered, "So, you are also a shallow person who looks down on him." Although Zhou Lang comes from a humble background, I believe he will achieve great things in the future. Just you wait and see, and don't regret it when the time comes. Zhou Dingyuan must have already demonstrated his understanding of the future situation to Qi Lingsu, and maneuvered to secure her current status, so she naturally trusted Zhou Dingyuan's abilities implicitly. I will absolutely not regret it. Seeing me so certain, Qi Lingsu looked smug, as if she were the only one who had discovered that Zhou Dingyuan's future was limitless. Her eyes shifted. It seemed she already had an idea. Qi Lingsu had always acted boldly. Now that she considered Zhou Dingyuan a rare prize, she naturally wouldn't sit idly by. My hint was already very obvious. As long as she was willing to go all out, The rest would be out of Zhou Dingyuan's control. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the autumn hunt. In the past, I didn't like to join in the bustle, but this time I had to go. But I didn't expect that the reclusive seventh prince would also appear at the autumn hunt grounds. He suffered from an eye ailment and could not see, covering his face with a light veil. The young eunuch beside him followed closely, raising a hand to support him. He walked at a leisurely pace as if strolling through a quiet courtyard. Not far away, the eyes of the other princes were full of disdain. A blind man, what is he doing joining the fun here at the hunting ground? But then, out of nowhere, a stray arrow came flying, aimed right at the seventh prince, Xiaoziao. In the nick of time, the arrow in my hand flew out and knocked that stray arrow to the ground. The people around looked shocked, never expecting my archery to be so accurate, let alone so agile and fast. In the crowd, a pair of eyes sharp as a hawk's stared tightly at me, sending shivers down my spine. That person was none other than Zhou Dingyuan, husband and wife for over 20 years in my past life. I had never revealed to him that I knew archery, but I was also shocked by his audacity to think he dared to make a move on the seventh prince in a situation like this. That stray arrow just now definitely didn't appear for no reason. He must have secretly sent someone to shoot it. The current seventh prince is just a blind prince. No one sees him as a threat. Only Zhou Dingyuan, who knows what the future holds, knows that this man will be his most formidable opponent one day. He wants to strike first to gain the upper hand. Although the seventh prince has an eye ailment, his hearing is excellent. In an instant, he understood what had happened. The young eunuch beside him whispered a few words in his ear, then supported him as they walked towards me. Many thanks for saving my life, Miss Meng. I will surely repay you heavily in the future. With just that one sentence, he hurried away. After the seventh prince left, Zhou Dingyuan strode over to me and demanded, "When did you learn such superb archery?" I looked up at him and chuckled. "Since I was little." "Then why did you save that seventh prince? Have you taken an interest in him? Don't forget, you are my fiancé. Know your place and don't overstep your bounds." Zhou Dingyuan narrowed his eyes slightly, his inky dark gaze scrutinizing me, as if emotions were faintly surfacing. I smiled and said, "General, you are too suspicious. No matter who stood here today, I wouldn't just stand by and watch him get hurt by a stray arrow." The look of suspicion in his eyes faded, and he just took it as a coincidence. But I had already seen through what he intended to do today. He wanted to take the chance, while the seventh prince had not yet come into his own, to have him die without a trace, eliminating a strong future rival for himself. How could I let him have his way? The enemy of an enemy is a friend. Zhou Dingyuan wants him dead, so I am determined to keep him alive. As for the fiancée, soon, she won't be one. His gaze turned toward the seventh prince, and he said with a hint of warning, "Changli rides the wind to rise," looking all around for a place to perch. "Since the Meng family wants to produce a golden phoenix, following me wouldn't be disgracing you. Don't go getting ideas about anyone else." In my past life, when he learned my maiden name, he said the same thing. Changli rides the wind to rise, looking all around for a place to perch. He prides himself on being a tree one can roost on, yet he has never been worthy of trust. Changli is the phoenix, the spirit bird from ancient texts. In this life, Changli rides the wind. What need is there for a perch? She will naturally spread her wings, fly high, and soar through the 9 heavens. I watched his assured manner carelessly, feeling nothing but mockery in my heart. The hunt began. Every prince and son of noble houses wanted to take the top spot and seize the chance to make a name for themselves. Given such a rare opportunity, the noble daughters skilled in riding and archery joined in as well. On the hunting grounds, heroes were judged solely by ability, with none of the usual rules to constrain them. Everyone split into groups and galloped away. I sat where I was, unwilling to take part. The seventh prince also sat in the corner, head bowed and silent, with absolutely no presence. At dusk, everyone rode back, their hauls plentiful. The officials counted the prey to determine the rankings. But just then, a maid from the Marquis of Qingyang's household cried out in alarm. County Princess Xining is missing. The two maids were in a panic, involuntarily raising their voices. The county princess hasn't returned. But by now, the sun had set behind the western hills, and the sky was darkening. His Majesty sent out a large party to search for her. There are many wild beasts within the hunting grounds. If she is lost and alone, it is very dangerous. I had sent someone to inquire, and Zhou Dingyuan hadn't returned either. It was just that in the panic earlier, no one had noticed him. I went into my tent and fell into a deep sleep. Tomorrow there will likely be a good show to watch. Early the next morning, the guards sent out reported that they had found County Princess Xining and Zhou Dingyuan in a cave. When they were found, their clothes were disheveled. When facing the emperor, Qi Lingsu spoke first, claiming she had accidentally fallen into a hunting trap while chasing prey. She said Zhou Dingyuan saved her and applied medicine to her wounds. And since the sky had grown dark, and they lost their way, they had no choice but to take temporary shelter in the cave. A lone man and a lone woman, spending the night together, this was already an indisputable fact. The old madam of the Marquis of Qingyang's manor had a dark expression as she spoke coldly. General Zhou, what do you intend to do? Zhou Dingyuan rubbed his temples, evidently having just fully woken up not long ago. What is done is done. He simply had to give an answer today. My actions yesterday were solely to save the county princess from danger. If her reputation has been damaged, I am willing to take responsibility. No sooner had his words fallen than a hint of joy flashed in Qi Lingsu's eyes. But what about Sister Meng? With just one sentence, she drew everyone's gaze onto me. Zhou Dingyuan hurriedly said, I will treat them equally, with the same level of respect. Before I could express my stance, I heard someone in the corner laugh out loud and mock. General Zhou, what makes you worthy to actually entertain the delusion of marrying the daughters of two important court officials at the same time? Everyone looked towards the source of the voice. It actually came from the seventh prince. A single sentence stirred up a debate, and His Majesty seemed to be considering it as well. Zhou Dingyuan is a subject who accepted the court's amnesty, hailing from the wilds, and his loyalty is still unknown. If he marries the daughters of two key ministers at such a critical moment, should he later form a faction for private gain, harbor disloyalty, and rebel against the court, then what? A single remark from the seventh prince caused His Majesty to develop suspicion and apprehension. Zhou Dingyuan still wanted to argue, but His Majesty had already waved his hand, saying, Things have come to this. County Princess Xining's reputation has been damaged because of you, and you must take responsibility. As for your marriage with the Meng family, let it be dropped. Seeing this golden opportunity, I spoke up at the right moment. Your Majesty is wise. Your humble subject is willing to withdraw to allow General Zhou and the county princess to be together. Zhou Dingyuan's gloomy gaze fell upon me, and I raised my eyes without fear. After such an accident, His Majesty was no longer in the mood for hunting. He ordered everyone to rest and regroup, with the royal entourage set to return to the capital the next day. But Zhou Dingyuan was actually bold enough to sneak into my tent that very night. The moment he entered, all the candles went out. A chill swept past, and his hand lightly gripped my throat. By the moonlight, I saw his sinister face clearly. His hand gradually tightened. Why break the engagement? I thought it was her scheme, but I never expected you were plotting it too. Given his nature, he probably figured out this was a trap Qi Lingsu set for him the moment it happened. He was just surprised that I had a hand in it too. I loathed this marriage to the extreme. From every moment after the marriage was settled, I have been thinking about how to destroy it. I smiled and glanced sideways at him. Aren't you afraid I'll kill you? But the next instant, A voice rang out from outside the tent. "Miss Meng, is it convenient to meet?" Taking advantage of the moment Zhou Dingyuan was distracted, I drew the dagger at my waist and stabbed at him. The cold blade sliced through his sleeve, and blood suddenly appeared. He didn't expect that I would really dare to make a move. As he dodged, I had already broken free from his restraint. He covered the blood seeping from his arm with his hand, his eyes full of disbelief. "My words just now were only a threat, but you really wanted to kill me." His low voice revealed self-mockery. "You hate me. You want me dead. Why?" His voice dissipated into the air. He didn't know that I had also experienced rebirth. The grudges of the past life were etched in my bones and heart. The moment the candle flame lit up, the seventh prince's voice rang out again. "Miss Meng, are you all right?" Obviously, he had just heard the commotion inside my tent. I walked out slowly, only to see him standing with his hands behind his back. A layer of black gauze covered his eyes, with long ribbons falling casually behind him. He looked exactly like an upright gentleman, a banished immortal from beyond the world. But I knew deep down, he was no man detached from the world. Today, when the stray arrow attacked, I thank Miss Meng for saving my life. I specifically offer this item as thanks. He took out a long, narrow brocade box from his sleeve, inside which lay a green jade dragon pendant. It is said that when every prince was born, they were bestowed a jade pendant symbolizing their identity. This is probably his. "This gift is too precious. I dare not accept it." He heard the refusal in my tone, but instead said slowly, "What if it serves as a betrothal gift? It was merely a small favor. There is no need for your highness to offer yourself in marriage, is there?" He ignored the teasing in my words and spoke quite seriously. "It is not for that reason. Miss Meng, your engagement has gone through many twists and turns, and I fear your future marriage prospects may be difficult. Meanwhile, I happen to need a brave, resourceful, and tactful princess consort. No need to rush your answer. You can think it over before." "No need." He thought I had refused. After a moment of slight disappointment, he clasped his hands in a bow, intending to leave. "Your Highness, I meant there is no need to think it over. I am willing to marry you." My voice was clear and resolute. He stopped in his tracks, a smile spreading across his lips. "Await the good news. The imperial decree for our marriage will be issued shortly." He placed the brocade box into my hands, then turned and left. This time, it wasn't just him choosing me, but also me choosing him. He was light as a swallow and moved freely. His hearing was excellent, allowing him to determine positions by sound alone. He was nothing like how he appeared during the day. His eye ailment seemed to have little effect on his movements. He was simply accustomed to pretending to be a blind, good-for-nothing prince in front of everyone. 3 days later, the imperial decree for the marriage was issued. The maid beside me sobbed. "Why is Mrs. Life so bitter? You just got rid of that boorish plague god. Yet you've been betrothed to the seventh prince. Though his status is noble, he is ultimately a blind man." I looked out the window into the distance and said, "Silly Zui, I chose this myself." She forgot to cry for a moment and asked in confusion, "What did you see in him?" "Naturally, it is that he has ambition, ability, and is short-lived. The point is, short-lived. He sees that I know when to advance and retreat, that I have courage and strategy, and will become his capable support. I see that he is ambitious, yet fate won't grant him years. He will be my best stepping stone. How can this not be considered a good match of like-minded people? I will help him seize power first. In reality, I am seizing it for myself. Those who want to use me will eventually become my pawns. I am trapped in the boudoir, and I want power, so I can only first approach those who possess power. Only in this way can my abilities find a chance to be displayed." The 2 marriages were settled just like that, and the wedding dates were both set for the 12th lunar month. After Qi Lingsu got what she wanted, she rarely appeared before me. She schemed against Zhou Dingyuan at the hunting grounds last time, and now she is busy trying to smooth things over to avoid hurting their relationship. I ran into them by chance again at a tea house. On that day, the wind and snow filled the sky. Zhou Dingyuan strode extremely fast, and Qi Lingsu gathered her skirts, chasing his steps in a sorry state. The wind and snow soaked the hem of her dress, yet Zhou Dingyuan did not slow down in the slightest. In the previous life, he doted on her to the bone, terrified she'd be touched by even the slightest wind and snow. But in this life, he got it too easily, so he doesn't cherish it. When we brushed past each other, neither of us stopped. In this life, we are destined to head in opposite directions. On the day of the grand wedding, the entire household rejoiced. Mother said that although the seventh prince has an eye ailment, he is gentle and cultivated. We would surely share similar interests, be in perfect tune with each other, and live harmoniously for a lifetime. The seventh prince and I share common ambitions, but definitely not in terms of temperament. It is just that there is no need to tell them these things. She used to always worry that since Zhou Dingyuan came from a rough background and disliked literature, he would never care for an overly proper noble lady, and thus would not like me. Now that it was changed to the seventh prince, she was actually happy. Father had too many expectations of me, while Mother only wished for my life to be peaceful and smooth. The seventh prince came personally to fetch the bride, to demonstrate his high regard. A prince taking a consort, a noble family marrying off a daughter. Naturally, it was a scene of 10 miles of red dowry, extraordinarily festive. On the night of the grand wedding, he and I drank the nuptial wine. It was less like a vow between husband and wife to live and die together, and more like a shared resolve to face the coming days of flashing swords and treacherous intrigue. My hand brushed over his brows and eyes, and I said softly, "Your Highness, do you wish to see the picturesque landscape of this vast land?" He suddenly grasped my hand, his voice low but laced with regret. "Of course, but alas, heaven does not grant me that. I will definitely find a miracle doctor to cure your Highness's eye ailment." Hearing this, his excitement was written all over his face. In the previous life, he took too many detours with his eye ailment. In this life, I hope his pace can be a little faster. After all, the time heaven has left for him is limited. On the third day after the wedding, I personally went to the Divine Physician Valley, willing to use the unique medical book from my dowry, to exchange for the Valley Master to come out of seclusion and treat Xiaoziu's eye ailment. The Valley Master hadn't come out of seclusion for over 10 years, and everyone in the capital laughed at me, saying I was bound to return empty-handed. But I knew the Valley Master had a lifelong regret. The one he loved in his youth was forever out of reach, separated by the ends of the earth, lost without a trace. But I knew where that person was. When I brought back the Master of the Divine Physician Valley, everyone had a different expression on their face. There were too many people, high and low, who didn't want his eyes to return to normal. The Master of the Divine Physician Valley said his blindness was caused by poisoning, not from birth, and there was indeed a way to restore his sight. It is a pity. He paused, and I knew it wouldn't be that simple to do. If I use the gold needle technique to disperse the residual poison in the eyes, he may regain his sight. But this comes at a price. If the poison is driven elsewhere, it may harm his longevity. I fear he won't live past the age of 30. If the poison isn't purged, he might have another 5 years of life. So, the reason his life was cut short was actually because of this. He didn't want to drag out a few more years of existence as a blind man. I only knew that his life was short in his past life, but I didn't know it was because he forced the restoration of his sight. The Master of the Divine Physician Valley stayed at the manor. The seventh prince sat in the corner pavilion, brushing away the remnant snow on the railing with his own hand. Letting it melt in his palm, I draped a cloak over him and stood by his side. "Your Highness," the snow flying beneath the eaves, wrapping everything in silver, is very beautiful. If you cannot see it in this lifetime, I can be your Highness's eyes. As soon as I finished speaking, His hand tentatively touched my brows and eyes as he said, "But I also want to see your face with my own eyes, and even more, I want to see that." He didn't finish, but I knew what he wanted to say. He wanted even more to take a look at the picturesque vastness of the realm. Not only did he want to look, he wanted to fight for it. Heaven offers no blessing, and it is hard to have both. But I have made my choice. A lifetime of muddling along is not as good as a moment of brilliance. I would rather be like a moth flying into the fire, burning magnificently for once, than live a lifetime of silence. The gloom in his voice completely dissipated, leaving only the relief that comes after making a choice. His choice was the same as in his previous life. He is going to fight for it, to vie for that splendid empire, for royal power and hegemony. He didn't want to cower in the darkness anymore, didn't want to hide behind the scenes, and most of all, didn't want to live a mediocre life, nameless in history. At this moment, I admired his ambition and daring. If I were him, I would make the same choice. The master of the Divine Physician Valley personally administered acupuncture to him for half a month straight. People came in an endless stream to fish for news, and even the emperor sent someone to inquire. Unlike their restless anxiety, I waited for the results with perfect composure. In this game for the realm, he is bound to be drawn in. When the gates to the main courtyard opened, the master of the Divine Physician Valley looked exhausted. "His Highness is waiting for you." I entered slowly, stepping into the room, and personally removed the light gauze from his eyes. The moment he looked up, his eyes were like stars, a smile spreading from the corners of his mouth. "Meng Chengli, you are different from what I imagined." "Oh, uglier than your Highness imagined?" I asked back. He shook his head and chuckled lightly. "No, valiant and heroic, a natural beauty. Most importantly, the anticipation deep in your eyes is the same as mine." Perhaps he was referring to the ambition deep in my gaze. I smiled without speaking. I gained his trust, and he gave me the jade token that commands half the shadow guards. From then on, orders were strictly enforced, and they all obeyed my commands. He solemnly promised, "You found a ray of hope for me. In this life, you will be the most important woman by my side." The most important woman. Come to think of it, many unimportant women will likely be added to this manor in the future. He could see the ambition in my eyes, but he only thought it was an ambition to be of one heart with him, to advance and retreat together. Little did he know, my ambition was never just to help him succeed. News reached the palace that the seventh prince had regained his sight, and the master of the Divine Physician Valley was heavily rewarded. It is a pity that by the time the rewards arrived, he was already nowhere to be found. He had already set foot on the journey to the snowy mountains in the northwest to search for someone lost many years ago. The Flower Festival Palace Banquet. The seventh prince and I arrived hand in hand, and the sounds of congratulations from the crowd were endless. Everyone high and low knows that the situation at court is about to change drastically. His Majesty has long refrained from naming an heir, so any prince has a chance. The seventh prince couldn't compete before, but after today, no one can say for sure. Qi Lingsu and Zhou Dingyuan have also gotten married. Their faces were grim, looking nothing like happy newlyweds. In her past life, she was the most favored in the harem for over 10 years, but she always brooded over the fact that she was merely a consort, not his officially wedded wife. In this life, I guess their dream has been fulfilled. Unfortunately, there wasn't a shred of a smile to be seen. The city defenses in Shizhou have been in disrepair for years, and the court is currently lacking someone to go there and take charge. Yet Zhou Dingyuan volunteered, requesting a transfer to serve as the governor of Shizhou, located in a remote area with harsh conditions and close to uncivilized tribes, and with no one in the imperial court willing to go there. He volunteered for the assignment, which the emperor readily approved. However, the others couldn't understand why he would give up a bright future at court to run off to such a remote place to strengthen the city defenses. Leaving like this meant being far away from the capital, and thus far away from the center of power. But in doing so, he not only lowered His Majesty's guard but could also plot his grand ambitions. Others don't know what is in Shizhou, but I know very well. In his past life, he built his fortune on the gold mines of Shizhou. Coinciding with internal strife in the court, he rose in rebellion. No one in the court dared to take on the corruption case in the Ministry of Revenue, but I urged the 7th Prince to volunteer. Your Highness has been dormant for years. You need to make a stunning impact now to enter the game. He had to show those veteran officials his capabilities before they would consider placing their bets on him. Changli, your thoughts align perfectly with mine. A look of appreciation flashed in his eyes. That Minister of Revenue was promoted by the 3rd Prince. Others wouldn't dare touch him, but your Highness dares. If this succeeds, it will be a chance to shock the whole court. I said slowly. Making this move is pointing the spearhead right at the 3rd Prince. The 3rd Prince was previously the most likely to be named Crown Prince. But after this, it is hard to say. Although the 7th Prince agreed with my idea, there was still a trace of worry in his eyes. Others wouldn't dare move against the 3rd Prince at this juncture because they can't figure out the Emperor's mind. If the 3rd Prince truly is the Crown Prince His Majesty favors, even if we suppress the 3rd Prince this time, we will still be rejected by His Majesty. His Majesty has long been dissatisfied with the 3rd Prince. Seizing the opportunity to suppress him now is exactly what Father Emperor would be happy to see. I said firmly. Previously, the 1st Prince died young. The 6th Prince is mediocre, and the 7th Prince has an eye ailment. The only one who can contend with the 3rd Prince is the 5th Prince. But a year ago, the 5th Prince's maternal family was implicated in the Prince of Huayang's case, and the entire clan was exiled. He has already fallen, with no chance left to compete. The 3rd Prince dominates the court alone, and the old officials behind him have been submitting memorials one after another to apply pressure, asking His Majesty to appoint a crown prince soon. The 3rd Prince even privately used the tributes from Siam. He clearly has intentions of overstepping his bounds. His Majesty has long been sick of him. He just lacks an excuse to punish him. That is all. Using force to strike force, the Emperor's art of checks and balances, means he will surely support the 7th Prince to counter the 3rd Prince, preventing the 3rd Prince from becoming the sole dominant power in the court. This is the very reason I dare to be so certain this time. If I lacked the ability to see through the court situation, how could I have sat securely on the throne in my past life? He sighed. If Changli were a man, you would surely be a pillar of the court. I just lowered my head and chuckled. But I do not wish to be a pillar of the court. I only wish to be your Highness's capable helpmeet, to help your Highness fulfill your long-cherished wish. You have come to this land to achieve great things, and I, Ziyu, will not fail you. You will surely be the most honored woman in the imperial court, he promised. I smiled faintly in response, not taking it to heart. In my previous life, after Zhou Dingyuan died, I reigned as emperor for 20 years. What I've always wanted was never to be the most esteemed woman in the imperial harem. He volunteered and took on this case. For the next 3 months in a row, he was busy to no end and rarely returned to the manor. With him not returning to the manor, I could actually free up my hands to do other things. He gave me a jade token that allows me to command half of the shadow guards, but this is not enough. If I only have his manpower, how can I be at ease? I need to start cultivating my own forces. At the same time, I dispatched several shadow guards to Shizhou. Zhou Dingyuan and Qi Lingsu arrived in Shizhou. In order to quickly understand the local livelihood, he visited various places and even went deep into the mountains to find a hermit to come out and help him govern Shizhou. Shizhou was a poor place to begin with, short on food and clothing. Taking the post of governor of Shizhou is basically like being exiled. If I don't achieve anything in the future, I am afraid it'll be hard to return to the capital. This was originally a desolate place that the court ministers shunned. Yet it was the stronghold where he rose to power in these troubled times. As for the matter of repairing the border defenses, the tasks are complicated, and it is certainly not the work of a single day. But who would have thought that rich gold deposits lay hidden beneath such barren land? In his previous life, he secretly mined it, helping him raise an army and finally rule the world. I've already sent people to keep an eye on the situation in Shizhou. Since arriving in Shizhou, he has been reclaiming wasteland and cracking down on bandits and local strongmen. The local clans have tried to trip him up plenty of times, but given his understanding of Shizhou, those local clans will soon be won over or broken apart to be used by him. Xiaozhou has been ruthless in investigating the corruption at the Ministry of Revenue, striking fear into everyone high and low. He has already traced it to the Minister of Revenue himself. Next, pulling up the radish is bound to bring up the mud. But at such a critical moment, he was suddenly attacked on his way back to the manor. Someone tried to assassinate him. The situation was critical. He luckily escaped, but a woman blocked an arrow to save him. When he appeared in front of me holding that woman, his clothes were already soaked with blood. I hurriedly ordered someone to take the token and summon the imperial physician, while also sending for famous doctors in the city to come to the manor. He stayed by the bedside, his face full of anxiety. I had already recognized who the woman was. She was the second legitimate daughter of the Marquis of Weiyuan's manor. Some days ago, there had already been rumors in the capital claiming that the second legitimate daughter of the Marquis Weiyuan manor admired the seventh prince and was madly in love with him. I deliberately had people make a big scene out of it. The news of the assassination attempt on Xiaozhou soon alarmed the palace. Several imperial physicians rushed over. The young lady is out of critical condition and just needs to rest quietly. Gossip filled the streets and alleys. Everyone, from the court to the commoners, knew that he had messed with someone he shouldn't have. Seizing the opportunity, 3 days later, he submitted the evidence. Evidence of corruption involving the Minister of Revenue and his clique was presented before the emperor. The third prince's close ties with them, their private dealings, and acceptance of bribes were indisputable. All those involved from the Ministry of Revenue were thrown into prison, and the third prince was confined to his estate. Xiaozhou's thunderous methods, this time swift, clean, and decisive, made the whole court sit up and take notice. His Majesty titled him Prince Ning and ordered him to take charge of the Ministry of Revenue. He is already the first among the princes to be granted the title of prince, a clear sign of special honor. As for the position of crown prince, the emperor's intent is evident. He has no wish to appoint one early, so I fear it will remain vacant. His Majesty had newly bestowed the Prince Ning manor, and guests thronged the gates. The hall was filled with high-ranking officials, and he was in high spirits. "Changli, thanks to you," he said, his gaze firm. But I had already guessed what he was going to say next. "I want to marry the legitimate second daughter of Marquis Weiyuan's manor as a secondary consort." His gaze looked toward me tentatively. Just as I expected, without the slightest deviation. I sneered inwardly. Sure enough. Miss Zhao risked her life to save your highness, and considering she has been infatuated with you for so long, it is right to give her a proper title. My generosity left him stunned for a moment, but he quickly agreed with a smile. The mistress of this manor will only ever be you, that will never change. He couldn't bear to let go of the support from the Marquis Weiyuan's manor, not to mention that Miss Zhao's maternal grandfather is the richest man in Yangzhou. I handled the side consort's entry into the household beautifully for him, and my reputation for virtue is known throughout the capital. After all, I handled plenty of such matters in my past life. Zhou Dingyuan had no shortage of beauties in his harem. Organizing another one now is basically second nature to me. That side consort Zhao was indeed just as the rumors said, utterly infatuated with him, seeing and holding no one else in her heart but him. When she was with him, it was all about romance and sentimental trifles, but I still had one thing to remind him of. Your Highness, you must be wary of Zhou Dingyuan. The group of bandits who accepted the court's amnesty alongside him were scattered among the guards of various prefectures. The court's intention was for them to hold empty titles and be neutralized by separation. However, if these men still maintain private contact with Zhou Dingyuan, should he harbor rebellious intent in the future, wouldn't a single call from him rally hundreds? That would become a grave threat. My words puzzled him, and he probed. He is just a petty bandit who accepted the court's amnesty. Now that he has been sidelined in a remote backwater like Shizhou, I reckon he can't stir up any waves. Why did you suddenly bring him up? As for the others, they're nothing but a rabble, not worth fearing. He is currently riding high in the court, enjoying the emperor's deep favor. His eyes are fixed solely on the position of crown prince. So naturally, he takes no notice of a lowly governor of Shizhou. Little does he know that by doing so, he is rearing a tiger to cause trouble later, sitting idly by as he grows powerful day by day. Your Highness, this man will surely be a formidable rival to you in the future. But he didn't like to hear words like that. In this life, his path has been much smoother than the last, so he has lost some of his wariness. Silence. How can such a lowly bandit be mentioned in the same breath as me? He retorted. Seeing my silence, he hurriedly reined in his temper, clasped his hands on my shoulders, and said gently, I was too impatient just now. Changli, you know that I am fighting this battle only for that high position. I don't want to waste too much time on insignificant people. I don't have much time left to leave my name in history and not live this life in vain. That is enough. As his voice trailed off, he began coughing incessantly, and a few drops of bright red appeared on his brocade handkerchief. His health had already begun to deteriorate. I took in all the helplessness and urgency in the depths of his eyes. But with Zhou Dingyuan around, even if he gained the throne, he still wouldn't be able to sit securely on it. It was precisely because he was careless and underestimated the enemy at this moment that he gave Zhou Dingyuan a chance to catch his breath. Over the past year, Zhou Dingyuan has already gained a firm foothold in Shizhou. He has bonded with the local clans of Shizhou and has even established trade with the surrounding prefectures, cultivating land and stockpiling grain, recruiting soldiers and buying horses poised to strike. The Shadow Guard sent word back, claiming that Mount Jianji in Shizhou was suddenly struck by lightning, causing the mountain to crack open. The governor of Shizhou has already sent men to cordon off the area layer by layer, prohibiting unauthorized persons from entering. When the news came back, I threw down the brush in my hand and whispered to Nari. He took the order and left. In his previous life, Sword Ridge Mountain was suddenly struck by lightning, revealing a gold mine. He strictly sealed off the information, and later all those who knew about it were killed, exactly like the situation today. I stood on the high tower, gazing into the distance. After Xiaoziu was named Prince Ning, his sights were set entirely on the power within the court. Even if he knew of Zhou Dingyuan's ambitions, he would consider him nothing to fear. But once the Jianji Mountain gold mine appeared, it was already rearing a tiger to invite calamity. I can't just sit back and do nothing. A few days later, the news of a gold mine appearing on Jianji Mountain in Shizhou spread throughout the capital. The entire nation was shocked. His Majesty issued an urgent edict ordering Xiaoziu to go to Shizhou to supervise. When he returned to the manor, he gave me a meaningful look. You just warned me to watch out for Zhou Dingyuan, and trouble struck in Shizhou right away. These rumors are fierce as tigers. They don't look like they came from Shizhou. I was the one who spread that rumor about Jianji Mountain splitting and the gold mine appearing. I am going with your highness on this trip. I readily admitted it. Seeing that I wasn't hiding anything, the gloom on his face cleared completely. He didn't ask how I knew, but simply responded, Good. In just 10 days, Xiaoziu and I arrived in Shizhou. Moving so quickly caught Zhou Dingyuan completely off guard. Though reluctant, he still bowed in greeting. Greetings to Prince Ning and the princess consort. Only the last few words were spoken through gritted teeth. Accompanying us this time were officials from the Bureau of Smelting and a detachment of troops. After an expert survey, it was confirmed that Jiangji Mountain indeed harbored a gold mine, and a rich one at that. Xiaoziu immediately ordered the news sent back to the imperial court, noting that specialists would soon be dispatched to handle the mining. Although Zhou Dingyuan's plans were ruined, he managed to keep his hands completely clean. Not a single fault could be found. He simply claimed he was worried about commoners wandering into the deep mountains and getting struck by lightning again, so he had ordered the area cordoned off while awaiting surveyors from the court. Unable to claim the gold mine for himself this time, he would need to find another opportunity if he wanted to achieve his goals. When he saw me, he sneered. "I heard a secondary consort has already entered the manor. It seems he is no different after all. So why were you unwilling to be with me back then? And what about you? Why were you so dead set on marrying me?" He seemed to lose himself for a moment under the moonlight. "Because you come from a prestigious family, are virtuous and gentle, and are the most suitable choice for a wife." "Liar," I scoffed at his answer. "Whether a wife or a tool, you know perfectly well." Hearing this, a look of astonishment appeared in his eyes. "Because of Chungjun, is it?" Hearing this name, he looked as if he had been struck by lightning, freezing in place as confusion and shock flashed through his eyes. He stumbled back repeatedly, then asked in disbelief, "How do you know that name? How could you still remember him?" I mocked him in a low voice. "You think you are the only one who remembers him? You are not worthy." He raised a finger. "So, you are also someone of rebirth. You guessed it early on, so everything that happened later was your doing on purpose." He looked around, finally understanding everything, his tone stiff. No wonder I was thwarted at every step, blocked at every turn. "Indeed, it was for Chengjun. I am willing to marry you again. Why do you refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit? You should know that I will win against Prince Ning, that short-lived ghost. This time, I am still willing to give you the position of Empress, willing to make Chengjun the crown prince. He will be my heir. This time, the imperial power and the entire realm. I'll give it all to him." The corners of his eyes turned scarlet, as if old memories were surging in his heart. His eyes filled with grief, indignation, and regret. "Do you think that if I marry you, Chungjun will be reborn, and you can make up for your regrets? You listened to the slander of villains, full of suspicion and paranoia, and forced him onto the battlefield. Yet you deliberately delayed the rescue. He died on that battlefield in the end, without even a whole corpse, left only his clothes returned for a burial. With such a bitter life, I doubt he would want to have any father-son bond with you again. Why bother starting over?" As I spoke of Chungjun's tragic end that day, pain surged from my heart, leaving me unable to breathe. He didn't dare listen any further. "And I, too, loathe the thought of spending a lifetime with you." My words landed, shattering the wishful thinking in his heart. He fled in a panic. With matters in Shizhou settled, the return to the capital was imminent. The shadow guards reported unusual activity in the capital. His Majesty hadn't held morning court for 3 days running. On the return journey, we reached Luosheng and stopped at a relay station to rest. "Your Highness, I fear there is already an ambush lying in wait within the imperial city." The cold wind howled, and assassins swarmed outside the window, just about to enter the capital. Yet someone laid an ambush here. Looks like they don't want to let him enter the imperial city. If I am not mistaken, the mastermind behind this assassination attempt should be the third prince. The guards by my side appeared, ready to fight. Before long, those assassins were already losing ground, but there was one among them skilled with hidden weapons. A willow leaf dart spiraled over, heading straight for me. "Watch out." I dodged to the side, and that willow leaf dart landed on the ground. Immediately after, several hidden nails shot out in a torrent, speeding towards us. Xiaoziu thought I was powerless to resist, actually risking his own body to shield me. Seizing that moment, I had already knocked away 3 hidden nails. But his arm was cut by a hidden nail, receiving only a simple bandage. I looked at the bloodstains on his sleeve, lowering my gaze slightly. Your Highness shouldn't have taken such a risk. Protecting you is only right. He said it so naturally, but how could there be so many things that are just meant to be? Those assassins were already a spent force, and in the blink of an eye, they were completely wiped out. On this journey, we'd long anticipated that someone wanted to make sure we'd never return, so we were prepared. I gave the assassin on the ground, who had already breathed his last, a couple of kicks, and fished out a contact item from his sleeves. A loud boom, 7 colored fireworks rose into the sky. It was the signal that the mission had succeeded. No need to rest. I fear something has happened in the capital. We'll enter the capital overnight. I exchanged a glance with Xiaoziyu, and we already had a silent understanding. Taking advantage of the fact that the third prince hadn't reacted yet, we'd catch him completely off guard. He and I didn't go through Dingen Gate, but took the route via the West Mountain to enter the West Mountain barracks. In the early morning, we entered in separate groups, in disguise, through the secluded Fucheng Gate. After entering the city, I actually felt something was off inside. Morning court hasn't been held for many days in a row. The imperial guards stationed in front of the third prince's manor have all been withdrawn. Instead, the residences of other key ministers are being guarded layer upon layer, and the palace gates are under strict lockdown, with all the previous commanders having been replaced. These people are all the third prince's trusted aides. From the looks of it, he is already prepared to stage a coup. The palace is in peril, but right now, the only way to know the specific situation is to sneak into the palace. All the palace gates are strictly guarded, so we can only use the secret passage. Xiaozi knows where that secret passage is. He clearly walked it in his past life. It is just that I am waiting for him to bring it up himself. If I were to mention palace secrets at a time like this, it would only arouse suspicion. It wasn't until dusk that he decided to enter the palace through the secret passage. Let's split up. If something goes wrong, you provide support for me from outside the palace. His gaze fell upon me, a look of certainty surfacing in his eyes. Okay, this trip is dangerous. I will definitely keep a way out open for you, I responded. Are you scared? Hearing him say this, what surged in my heart wasn't fear, but excitement. In my past life, I too was once the supreme ruler of this towering imperial city, the master of all the people. Now, it is just a matter of taking back what was once mine. Not scared. Hearing how firm I was. Only then did he turn resolutely and leave. Tonight is destined to be a sleepless night, but this is a showdown between him and the third prince, and I have confidence in him. That third prince is no match for him. I led my men to guard the secret passage entrance with our lives for a whole night. Until daybreak, when the central gates of the imperial city were thrown wide open, Xiaoziyu's personal guard came to escort me into the palace. Princess consort, it is done. Slay the traitors, rally to the king and save his majesty. The third prince has died in the chaotic fighting. Unfortunately, his majesty was confined by him for many days without food or water. Now his breath is faint, and the imperial physicians are consulting to force him to write the succession edict. The third prince didn't hesitate to turn his blade against him. If he can make it through these 3 days, he'll be out of danger. If not, then we must make plans early. The key ministers of the court all gathered outside Qiyuan Hall, and Xiaoziyu guarded there, not leaving for a single step. I quietly watched the leaves drift down in Prince Ning's manor. At midnight the next day, the death knell tolled long in the palace. The emperor had passed away. Everything happened earlier than in my previous life. His Majesty's final edict passed the throne to the 7th prince, Xiaoziyu. After the national mourning, the new emperor ascended the throne. I stood by his side, becoming empress once again. Side consort, Zhao becomes noble consort and takes up residence in Zhangjia Hall. The night he ascended the throne, He had me climb with him to the highest point of the imperial city to gaze at the sky full of stars. Changli, I did it. As his voice faded, he coughed nonstop. Even though he barely suppressed it, the signs were still visible. What he wanted was a fleeting moment of splendor, not a century of silence. He really did it. The great Qi dynasty, 12 generations of rule to this day. Ever since he ascended the throne, internal strife and external threats, along with deep-rooted maladies and accumulated abuses, have surfaced one by one. Yet he takes medicine daily, lingering on his sickbed. I review memorials and handle state affairs in his stead. At first, some ministers were dissatisfied, but seeing that my decisions were sound, they eventually gave their tacit approval. In the 6th month of his reign, rebel armies rose up on all sides. The man leading them is none other than Zhou Dingyuan. Those bandits from Tianxing Fortress, scattered across the provinces, are seizing the chance to revolt. They were always of one mind with Zhou Dingyuan, just waiting for him to raise a call to arms. Taking advantage of the unstable throne and the unsettled court, he intends to vie for supremacy with Xiaoziu. Zhou Dingyuan would not let such a golden opportunity slip by. When he received this news, Xiaoziu's dark, brooding gaze fell upon my face. The Empress has predicted correctly once again. It is a pity. He seemed to regret that it was too late, yet it also seemed to be within his expectations. I had warned him long ago, but he had his own constraints. He doesn't have that much time left. The lingering poison has flared up, and he no longer has the strength to fight. He sent the court's generals to suppress the rebellion. Yet 7 cities were lost in succession, and 3 provinces fell one after another. Zhou Dingyuan's forces grew stronger by the day, advancing with irresistible momentum, perhaps. Within 3 months, they will strike straight at the imperial city. The court's generals suffered successive defeats. They felt only that Zhou Dingyuan's tactics were treacherous and unfathomable. Zhou Dingyuan comes from a bandit background and does not follow the conventional methods of the court generals, leaving them at a loss on how to deal with him. The situation is critical, imminent, but I am waiting for this opportunity. I am willing to lead the army into battle and wipe out the bandits for your majesty. As soon as these words were spoken, the court and the public were abuzz with discussion. There has never been a precedent for an empress going to war. It is improper. This violates ancestral laws. It is absolutely forbidden. With just this one remark, he drew thousands of voices of criticism from the officials. But in my previous life, I've done things that flew in the face of the entire world, so why would I fear a little resistance today? In the days to come, no one will be able to stop what I intend to do. The world is already in chaos. To settle the world in chaotic times, you rely on strength, not rules, tedious formalities, old customs, ancestral laws. None of these can hold me back. Xiaoziu was different from those courtiers. The only thing appearing on his face was a look of understanding. In this world today, the one who understands Zhou Dingyuan best is me. I know his temperament, and I know his weaknesses. In a life-or-death situation, Xiaoziu had no choice but to hand over power to me. I was also certain he would do so. Granted, as the Empress petitioned. As the words fell, everyone was rendered speechless. In this life-or-death crisis, they had no good strategies left. The Son of Heaven's decree was issued. No one dared to argue further. Holding the tiger tally, I mobilized the troops, marched straight out of the capital, and split the army into 3 routes. I led one of the main armies to station at Yekung. Another route headed south to hold Kuzhou, and one more route went west to occupy Qingyang Pass. Zhou Dingyuan and I are destined to have a battle in this life. It is a fight to the death. We cannot coexist. The vice-general for this battle is General Zhenbei, but he refuses to submit to me. He doesn't believe that Zhou Dingyuan would give up Yuzhou to take Kuzhou, and he believes even less that Zhou Dingyuan would abandon Yancheng, a vital transport hub, to turn and attack Yekung. His face was full of disdain. He might understand the complexities of warfare, but I know the man Zhou Dingyuan. In the past life, we advanced and retreated together for over 20 years, never having the chance to cross swords. In this life, we can finally have a real showdown. Since he knows of my rebirth, he will definitely spare no effort. This battle is bound to be extremely dangerous. Zhou Dingyuan's army marched through the night towards Yuzhou, moving extremely fast. General Zhenbei's eyes were filled with worry. If Yucheng falls... My eyes were fixed tight on the sand table as I said slowly, "Within 2 days, we'll see the result." Zhou Dingyuan's army is only feigning an attack on Yuzhou. His real goal is to capture Kuzhou, merge with his previous deployments, and connect with the rebel forces in the eastern Shuo and Yue prefectures. Then he can encircle us on all sides, and after that, he'll be unstoppable. His sights are set on more than just a measly Yuzhou. Hearing this, General Zhenbei seemed to realize something, but he was still filled with worry. It wasn't until 2 days later that the enemy sneak attacked Kuzhou. Our army had already laid an ambush, and the enemy was routed. Zhou Dingyuan's hope of uniting the forces of Shuo and Yue had become a pipe dream. If he could connect the Shuo and Yue prefectures and gather his forces there, taking the capital straight away would be just around the corner. But after the Battle of Kuzhou, Zhou Dingyuan's forces were scattered apart. Yancheng is a strategic stronghold, a place that must be fought for. According to conventional thinking, he would definitely try to take this place. But if he takes Yakang and crosses Qixia Ridge, he can approach the imperial city unbeknownst to anyone, taking a shortcut. His current forces can no longer support a full-scale assault to capture Yancheng, so his best option is Yakang. And I counted on exactly that. On the surface, I stationed troops at Yancheng, but my elite core forces are all right here. The night was dark, and the wind was high. Someone was attacking the city. I stood high atop the city tower. With a single command, the lights blazed, rolling logs and stones were smashed down, and a rain of thousands of arrows poured out. I took out the bow and arrow I had prepared and aimed straight at him amidst the chaotic army below the city. Although he dodged, an arrow still struck his left shoulder. Below the city, the gongs sounded for retreat. They fled in panic, pulling back over 10 li to set up camp. At the same time, the troops stationed at Qingyang Pass to the west converged here, forming a pincer attack from inside and out. By the time Zhou Dingyuan realized it, he was already trapped like a turtle in a jar. He fought desperately, trying to break out, but the disparity in strength was too great. It was ultimately useless. I fired 3 arrows in succession, shooting straight into his chest. His eyes were filled with unwillingness. When I rode my horse up to him, he hadn't breathed his last yet. Meng Changli, I underestimated you. I narrowed my eyes slightly and sneered. You died by my hands in the previous life, too. The Yihei incense in your bedchamber, and your favorite Wanian ink colorless, odorless, exotic poisons were added to both. I already avenged Cheng Jun in the previous life. After you died, I reigned as emperor for 20 years. His hand was raised high, his eyes full of unwillingness. I pulled out the arrow, sending him on his final journey. You insisted on living another life, so I'll just kill you one more time. His wrist dropped heavily. The rebels have been eliminated, and the entire army is wholeheartedly submissive, ready to obey orders. We marched back to the capital, welcomed by crowds lining the streets. Xiaoziyu stood at the city gate to welcome us. His face was pale, his eyes solemn, devoid of joy. Perhaps he was also worried that I would stage another coup. Under his astonished gaze, I took off my armor, handed back the military seal, and put the phoenix robe back on. He placed the phoenix hairpin on my head, murmuring, "Changli is, after all, a phoenix soaring in the 9 heavens." The poison had entered his vitals, and his days were numbered. I personally served him medicine, my words and actions just as they were before. He also talked to me about many things from our childhood. A lowly birth, a childhood of cold neglect. Later, he made a name for himself by solving the Northern Kingdom envoy's puzzle, but this also invited disaster. He was secretly poisoned and turned blind, living in darkness ever since, while the emperor gradually forgot him. He said he also wasn't willing to yield to fate back then, so he wanted to take a gamble. Luckily, he won the bet. But now, being toyed with by fate once again, he has no choice but to resign himself to it. Having come this far, I don't regret it. His gaze was burning, radiating determination. He knew full well it was like a moth flying into the fire, yet he would still make that choice. Meng Chengli, when I married you, it was originally just to use you. I know. Hearing me respond so calmly, he let out a dazed laugh. Our beginning was nothing but weighing gains and losses, endless scheming. But later, I don't know when it started, I actually thought that if I had a long life to walk slowly by your side, watching the drifting clouds and flying snow, observing the changing seasons, perhaps that would be a fine life. But fate does not allow it. It is all just a foolish delusion. As the words fell, he couldn't stop coughing. I handed him a cup of ginger tea. His gaze softened, and he continued. That night in Luocheng, when the assassination attempt happened, I subconsciously blocked the hidden weapon for you. In that instant, perhaps I had a shred of sincerity, or perhaps I just hoped you would be of better use to me. What is real and what is fake? Even I can't tell anymore. These words of his were indeed touching, but I know very clearly that if he were to live a long life, he would be an emperor of ever-growing majesty, possessing the beauties of the 3 palaces and 6 courtyards. The side of an emperor's bed allows no one else to sleep soundly. This sliver of sincerity wouldn't withstand the power struggles and scheming, and eventually it would be worn away completely, leaving not a shred behind. If he had a long life, how could he tolerate an ambitious empress whose achievements overshadow her master by his side? It is just that here and now, as words spoken at death's door are kind, I am also willing to offer a bit of comfort. Your Majesty, perhaps there is a next life. In the next life, you'll have a healthy body, a long lifespan, and a wife whose love never wavers. Is that so? If that were the case, I definitely wouldn't make using her the beginning of our meeting. What about you? The exploitation at the beginning, was there ever a moment later on where it was different? He pressed. I remained silent for a long time. His smile was full of self-mockery. I cherish a mutual appreciation with your Majesty. I understand your Majesty's ambitions and unwillingness to give in. Precisely because of this, I am willing to give him a dignified ending. Chengli, I knew the answer long ago. You have never called me Ziyu, only calling me your Highness or your Majesty with distance, he said slowly. His gaze fell upon the desk in the distance. I knew long ago that with your ability and ambition, no one could stop you. I can't stop you, nor do I want to. Rather than aiding those clansmen who are estranged from me, I'd rather aid you. The Jade Seal and the posthumous edict are over there. Take them yourself. My gaze followed the sound. This is the unspoken understanding between him and me, and the dignity I left for him. That day when we returned from the campaign, I'll hand back the tiger tally and put the Empress's robes back on, and he'll understand what I mean. The generals have submitted. The world's heart is mine. Now no one can stop me. One day, I will personally write the inscription for your stele, a capable guardian of the legacy, holding the universe in your heart, enduring through both glory and decay. I promised. All right, this life has been too exhausting. I want to rest. His breath was faint as a thread, and in the next instant, his hand fell heavily into my palm. Maybe there really is a next life, I said wistfully. I turned and walked towards the outside of the great hall. His Majesty has passed away. Everything was within my control. I ascended the throne smoothly, with iron-fisted tactics. Throughout the court and the country, no one dared to disobey. I personally wrote the epitaph for him, to be buried with him in the underground palace. I stand high atop the imperial city. The scenery here is the same as in my past life, and I have once again become the ruler of this place. Whether in my past life or this one, I am unwilling to hand my destiny over to others to control. The only one who can master my destiny is myself. Changli rides the wind, soaring straight up 90,000 miles.